Hello everyone, how are you doing? In this video we're going to learn about all the English words that have been generated by the redheads. Dal, the king of the dolmens, how the dolmens work. We're going to explain how it's set out in this beautiful pantheon of the Asgard, the Middle Earth and the lower world, where the words he, she, gala, tall, idea, all these English words are the names of gods of the redheads. The names of the gods of the redheads have generated English words. They have generated alchemical words such as from Sila, such as salt, soul, sulfur. We're going to explain how they generated alchemy and how, because the redheads own alchemy. They made alchemy, they took it to Egypt, they took it to Europe, they built the megaliths, they did all the technology. And we're going to explain also the word Dal, the supreme god, how the three gods live at Stonehenge. Dal, Hela, Sal, they all live at Stonehenge. It's absolutely incredible. So we're going to explain all that. Let's get to it. Two of you have been very generous with donations. Thank you so much. Helping me renovate this place because it's a lot of hard work. So thank you so much. If you want to help me out on Patreon, you may do so. I will permit that for a certain amount of limited amount of time. Thank you. Let's get to the video. Thanks. Well, let's get to it. And this is tremendously exciting. Now, we made a compelling and I would say convincing case in the previous video of a migration from southern Russia, from the Caucasus, into various areas in the ancient world. And these were conquering red-headed peoples. They went down into the east, taking Satan and Yahweh with them. They went into Africa. They went into Britain. Geoffrey of Monmouth says that giants from Africa built Stonehenge, and Africa is basically the Algeria region in Roman times. I strongly believe Geoffrey of Monmouth's medieval book from the 1100s is based on a book written in Roman times about ancient British history. Also, early dolmens. Some of the oldest dolmens were built in the Caucasus, and there are thousands in the Caucasus. It's also the homeland of Medea, of ancient Greek tragedy. There was actually so much going on here in ancient times. Also, close by, one of the earliest civilizations in Europe, where the Bulgarian golden treasure of the 3rd or 4th millennium was found. So we made a case, and now we're going to get into the implications of this, the tower building culture and the Stonehenge building culture, and yes, even the pyramid building culture. I believe these people built Giza, and they are the same as the cone heads of Brian Forster that he discovered as originating from this region genetically. So let's get to it and let's look at the implications, because it looks like the names of the gods of these people became regular English words, alchemy words. These people were the alchemists. So let's get to it. So this is supposed to be a dolmen. And in order to draw the pantheon, I've decided to draw it on the 3 levels of the world. So we have the Asgard level, the heaven, we have the Middle Earth level, and we have the Hell level. And this is all due to the work of a man called Amjad Jaymuka, a prehistorian of mythology. And it looks like his 2005 work was on Circassian mythology was pivotal in extracting the names of this pantheon of the gods from the mythology and circulating ancient stories found in the Caucasus. So we will see that words like he, she, gala, it, tall, idea, I, egg, which is similar to idea, are all actually the names of these gods. Now, he obviously doesn't support, he's got nothing to do with my ideas of these being English words or this people migrating into the West. He just said this is the pantheon of the people of the Caucasus. But I'm saying these are the old gods of the redheads of the West, and these people went worldwide taking this religion with them. So, according to this man's work, the supreme top god is Dal, which is the equivalent of Jupiter, and it occurs to me this is the name of the dolmens. But when we look at the word dolmen, is it not a tall man? Is it not saying that's tall? Oh, you're tall. You're godlike because you're tall. Or, and man, does that not come, I've said this before, from Manu, which is basically the Indian version of Noah. Manu, the first man after the flood. So the giant Manu, the big man Manu, and a dolmen's representing this man, especially if we look at places close to Göbekli Tepe, as ancient architects has been showing, dolmens which could be standing up in a pool of water. And is this not similar to the Shiva Linga? Menher. In German, could that not be similar to Männer, which is the plural of man? Again, it has this man in it, this root man. Anyway, let's get to the pantheon, because that's just a bit of a side story. So the sun is a god called Gal Yerthi, or it's called Gala. And this is where we have the English word gala, which means celebration, or it's in French, or it's in West European. So it shows that these people did move around, and there's many proofs that these people left the Caucasus and moved around. Their war god is Molish Yerthi. And Yerthi, to me, this is similar to, well, it's actually similar to the word Yeti, and it's similar to the word Yahweh, which is also a war god, and possibly even a sun god, because it's a monotheistic god. Now, also in the high pantheon is a god of lightning and thunder, which is Sila, which is a man, but Sila has a wife, also called Sila Sata, or just Sata. And we've shown that this is a goddess in England also called possibly Sila or Sheila, and it generated the word Salisbury in the centre, what was thought to be the centre of England. And that's important, and I believe this is where the word she comes from. Every god has a goddess associated. Every goddess has a god associated with it in the Stone Age. They're inseparable. And now, that's just a few of them. I didn't write all of them down here. If you want to see the complete list, look up the Vainakh religion on Wikipedia. So, Middle Earth. What's on Earth? It's called Middle Earth because it's in the middle. It doesn't mean it's the Earth in between other Earths. They're not Earths. There's only one Earth. So, Pakarmat, which the Greeks rendered as Prometheus. They tried to make when the Greeks write something, they try and translate it as well. They're a little bit too sneaky, which is a bit of a problem. For example, they seem to have translated Brutus of Britain as Boreas. So they said the Hyperboreans lived in Britain, and boreal means north. So they're a little bit too sneaky, and they translate as well as transliterate. So pro is the first, the one that comes first, and they haven't quite written it properly. But the PK, in Slav, this is Bog, which means God. And then the Harmat, it's close to Hermes. Bog Hermes, it's close. And he was the god who stole the fire from Sheila and gave it to man. And he was tied up to a mountain and punished. The god Ida ripping up his liver. And the word Ida seems to have generated eye, egg, and idea. What is an idea? It's something that flies around according to ancient mythology or Egyptian mythology. In Greek, it is Ido, I see. But it's a bird god, the king of the birds. A kind of falcon. Ida. There is a Mount Ida in Greece. And I believe this generated the English words idea, eye, egg. All associated with birds. Melhun is a fallen angel. Uya. Uya is the Cyclops. So the Cyclops is in the red-headed legend. And people have said, when I was studying the Iliad in classics, my tutor actually said, these stories that are in the Iliad, they're found in Scandinavia. They're found in ancient Britain. But they're a bit different. And they all have the Cyclops. They all have this Odysseus-type character. What's going on, we don't know. But Uya is the red-headed Cyclops. And obviously that word means eye. In the Greek rendering, they actually call it round eye. That's the name. That's what Cyclops means. Now let's look at what's in the underworld. Hela. And I believe this is where we generate the word he, because when I looked at the heel stone and I thought, okay, it's the name of a pole, a totem pole, if you like, and it's called he. He must be the name of an ancient god. And I said this in my totem pole video or a succeeding video. So this is he, this is she. It's all in the different types of poles. And it is a god of darkness in the religion from the Black Sea. So did this generate the English words hall, hill, and holy? And if it's a hall, it's the fall hall, the hall of the fallen. Valhalla is Valhalla actually down there instead of up there. A bit tricky. The fact is, no one knows, no one ever knew. So it's up to the ancient priests on where they want to put these things. We don't know. Let's look at the next slide. So, did the redheads invent alchemy? Based on these gods, it would seem so. Let's go straight to the alchemy thing. Sela, the god Sela. Now, we've explained this extensively in the previous video. I urge you to look at part 1 if you haven't already done so, as a good introduction to this video. But straight away, we see it generates the words soul, salt, and sulfur. Salt and sulfur are absolutely indispensable to alchemy. So they have something to do with lightning and fire in the sky. So every substance, and the word substance is sub, something underlying, something that stands up on its own. Substance. It's a Latin thing. To make any substance in alchemy, you take a salt, which is earth and water, and then you combine it with a masculine principle. So something which is sulfurous or has the qualities of something which is a little bit fiery, a little bit strong, a little bit astringent, a little bit masculine, with mercury, which is something that is a little bit weaker, but a little bit more subtle, something intelligent, crafty, underlying, feminine and watery. And you add these two principles, which have chemical forms, to a salt, which is just a weak, earthy, watery, crystalline thing, and you make a chemical element. And you can vary the ratios of these to change the element according to some alchemists, but probably not all of them. And it occurs to me that since salt and sulfur are obviously based on the god or goddess Sela in the sky, you need a triple god. Every substance has a triple god inside it. So salt is Sela, sulfur is also Sela, and mercury, I believe, is based on the Polish goddess Marcana, which is a watery goddess of death. They would take a totem pole representing Marcana and throw it in the water as part of a Christian pagan ritual, and later a Christian ritual, to show they were rejecting Marcana. They kept doing the ritual to show they were rejecting this goddess, overthrowing all the totem poles, and they found the one of the idols, the Zbuk idol, in the water in a swamp in Ukraine, 1,000 years old, and I've talked about that many times. So Sheila generates the word she, which must have been the name of females. So eventually they started calling people she or he based on the other god. The goddess of Bath, or Badon as it was called by the Welsh, the Wall people, was Aqua Sulis, the waters of Sulis, the waters of Sul. And they said, well, Sul must be a British goddess, and it must be the sun because Sol is the sun in Latin, right? Yeah. And so we see what Sul really is. It's a kind of lightning god or goddess, but also a goddess of waters, because it's based, in England at least, it became a goddess of waters. Now, Sul, seal, this is where we get the word seal on a letter. Now, seals have been done probably in England since ancient times. We see that medieval England, medieval Europe, they would make a scroll and they would seal it. They would stamp it with some wax and make an elaborate seal on it to show it was holy. And you do not open the seal unless you are the recipient. There was a king's seal. And this must be based, because it's a chemical concoction, it must be based on Sela, this goddess of lightning and thunder. Now, etymologists, when you look up the etymology of a word, you don't actually get the etymology of the word. They will provide something like a Latin or Greek. So signum. So they say, oh, it must come from the Latin signum. But that is just not the case. It's just that we don't have the underlying Germanic records surviving of what the word really was, which was the word of the goddess or god Sela, the composite god. So it's clearly different to signum, but that's one of the earliest things we have. We have the Latin, so they provide that. But it doesn't come from that, and it's important. That's an important point. So we also get the word sell. You want to sell something? Oh, okay. Let's go to a harvest hill, a festival hill where festivals were done. And until the 20th century, people in Britain used to drive their cattle up the hill somewhere where there was a market, where a market took place. And remember the Matthew Paris map of Britain, and we've puzzled over this map in many videos because it is so good. He drew this in the 1230s. See the previous video for a better explanation. But someone told me it's the English flag. It is. Silbury Hill, Stonehenge, Salisbury in the middle, Sela. We've explained why it needs to be in the middle of England in the previous video. It's at a crossroads, which forms the planet Earth in Alchemy, the alchemy symbol of planet Earth. Also the English flag. The hill with being the sun symbol as well from the top. Silbury Hill, where Sil was buried. And what is Sil? Well, there's a legend that at Silbury Hill, there was someone called King Sal was buried in a golden suit of armor. So some kind of god was buried there. And I've written a book saying these pyramids, which is what Silbury Hill is, were burials of gods, not burials of man. Burials of man don't need to be that big. And they were often, we're finding out, in the center of countries. So let's get to the next video, because these are the implications, and these show us that the redheads probably invented alchemy because the words come from their god. And everyone in southern Russia was redheaded, according to an Arab historian who visited there in about 1000 AD. But what happened is the Slavs then mixed with the Iranians, the Huns. They became a little bit darker. But they still have very ruddy features. And one of their holdouts is ancient UK. The ancient UK English units are the same as the Egyptian units, possibly for either the English went to Egypt directly from England, from Scandinavia or from England, or wherever they were living. I think they were living in England before the Britons. They were the giants who were thrown out by the Britons from Turkey, and then they came back. They took it back. Maybe because they remembered they came from there. Anyway, let's get to the next slide. So now let's look at Dal, the supreme god, from the top of that pantheon totem pole. And it generates the word toll. Do you pay a toll? Do you have to pay a toll if you go to Stonehenge because there's a dolmen there? Do you pay a toll at the dolmen? You have to pay Dal eventually, so do you have to pay your toll? And when you tell someone something, it's like, I'm telling you. I'm not just saying it. Say is actually Sela. I'm saying it. By Sela. I'm saying it. By Sela. Or I tell you by Tal. By Tal, I'm telling you this. I swear it. By Dal. Or you're telling a tale. Something about Tal and the gods. Or is it told at the teaching stone, which is based on the word tof, or totem, I believe. Dolmen. So interesting, isn't it? Now, another thing we got to say is if you learn Latin, you say fer, ferry, you decline the word I carry, I bring, and you say I ferry, I ferro, I ferry, and then you say I brought, I tully, I tullit, it brought, tully, the perfect form. So why does the word change from ferro to tully? Why the different word? It's like in English you say, I bring, he brings, she brings, it brings, and then you say, instead of saying I brought, you say I carried. So you change the word. Why do they change the word to tully for the perfect word? Well, tully, if I brought it, I made it. It's almost like I made it. It's done. It's done already. It's the perfect form. Is it related to the god Dal? Because as I believe, the early Romans were red-headed. The Roman race, the citizen race, were a red-headed blonde race. You look at pictures of Augustus, and then they became a bit darker. Everyone became a Roman later on. We don't quite know where the Romans came from, but it seems to me they were an Eastern people. Anyway, a dale is a wooded ditch, so maybe a special sacred area, a wooded grove. And they built these ditches, these dikes as they were called, all over Britain. And there is a ditch, a sacred ditch around Stonehenge, which we've proven beyond a doubt, in my opinion, in previous videos, represents Stonehenge. Stonehenge represents the size of the Earth relative to the Moon. This is the size of the Moon compared to this, and we've proven that exactly. So that must be the Earth. It's made out of Earth, so that's a clue that it is the Earth. And we've proven it represents exactly the size of the Earth. We've shown that. That represents the size of the Moon. It is a crescent. It seems to be mostly the Sarsen circle. It's called a circle, but it seems mostly built on the side that faces the rising sun. So it's actually a lunar crescent at eclipse. It's supposed to light up like an eclipse from a distance when the sun rises past the heel stone on the solstice. So the sun is the god Gal. The earth ring is the dale, the dell, the ditch. So that's the god of the whole earth, the head of the pantheon. The healer is the heel stone. And it's at Salisbury. And Sarsen, what does it mean? Okay, they said it means Saracen stones because they're the giants from Africa. That's a theory of someone, I don't know when, a long time ago. That's not the truth. The truth is, if we break up this word, we get the Sar, and then we get Sen. Sen is a contraction of stones. So it's the Sar stones. The stones of Salisbury or Salisbury. RL, it flips. It flips over time. Accents change. So it's the stones of the Sar, or the Sal stones, the stones of Salisbury. So the stones of Sal, the stones of Selah, the stones of Sheila. So does this mean that Sheila is also a moon goddess? And that would make sense if it's a female god, at least in England. So, and that does represent the moon, definitively, in my opinion. It's just like the circle of stones, it's like the stones in front of Newgrange. They're only on one side of Newgrange, representing the moon. So these are the gods of the builders of Stonehenge. And I think I've demonstrated that. I've been obsessively studying this for a long time. And this is my conclusion. These are the gods of these people. Now, I hope you've enjoyed that video. That is the final slide. You can help me out on, if you want, you can send me something on Patreon, or why not? Live a little. All right. Bye-bye.